Okay, so we are going to start from Tzadik Aleph. But let's just summarize, right? So he told us that the path to kind of ultimate spirituality is a long path that has multiple steps to it, right? That right now we're living in a physical world where the neshama is basically kind of dominated, subjugated by the body, and we're moving on slowly towards the opposite, where the body is completely dominated and subjugated by the soul. But he says that there are 5 stages of this transition, right? Meaning from the body, that's the fifth stage, to the first stage. And there are 5 stages that the body releases its dominance over the soul slowly. Now he said, how do we know this? And he just said basically that just if you think about it, that's the only way to break it up into stages. You have, total dominance of the body. Second part is the body moves from its kind of home base to the spiritual location, but it still has control. Mm-hmm. And then slowly it releases control until it has no control whatsoever. And we also, in the commentaries, we saw that that's parallel to the to this 10,000 year idea that, we never experienced before, where the first stage is the first 6,000 years, and the second stage is the 7,000th year, which is called, the Gemara says, Chad Chorov, 1,000 year of destruction. Then you have the 8, right? Then you have the 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, right? So that works out in the stages. So at the end, the last thing we saw, the Ramchal is saying that you don't need to know all the 5 stages. That's just for your, personal knowledge to keep in mind as you learn other things. But basically, there are 3 stages. There's fully physical, fully spiritual, and then something in between, right? So fully physical, fully spiritual, and then something in between. Okay, that's it. So that's what it says. So that's what he said. That's what we're starting now. Tzadik Aleph. Tzadik Aleph. Omar Neshama. So the Neshama says, Im Kain Nedaber Mishloisha Matzovim Elu. Okay, so let's continue speaking about these 3 stations, 3 situations of, right? So Tzadik Beis. Omar Seichel. Chachamenu Zal Hayrunu. So our sages taught us that the world will be around for 6,000 years. So the world as we know it today will be around for 6,000 years. And then afterwards, Elef Hashvi, the 7,000th year, 7th millennium, let's put it that way, Hu Chorov, it's destroyed. And then after that, after the 7th millennium, 8th millennium, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mechadesh olamoi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu renews the world. Okay? So that's one thing, that's one idea that we are aware of. Okay? Good. V'oid matzano, we also find, She'omru, that they said, Alelef Hashvi, regarding this 7th millennium, Tzadikim ma'oisim, what are tzadikim doing? What are tzaddikim doing? HaKadosh Baruch Hu oisel hem knafayim. So Hashem makes for them wings. V'shotim al pnei hamayim. And they hover above the water. Okay? So yeah, I don't know anything about any of this, but I'm just, learning. So Shenemar, as it says, v'koive Hashem yachlifu koich. The koive Hashem means those that trust in Hashem, or not exactly trust, but those that yearn for Hashem, yachlifu koyach, they will have renewed strength. So mepshuton shel dvorim, anachnu lamedim, from the simple reading of the words we learn, sheshloish zmanim yesh, that there are 3 times, 3 periods, 3 eras. Vehem, shisa alfei shnin, 6,000 years, elef hashvi, the 7,000th year, v'chidush olam, and the renewal of the world. So Shisa al Fishnin, the world remains as it is at the present. Elef Hashvi, the 7,000th year, 7th millennium, Adayin Lenis Chadash Olam. The world has not yet been renewed. V'atzedikim heim k'moish choyu b'tchias hamesim. And the tzedikim remain the way they lived at tchias hamesim. All right, so that's where did tchias hamesim come into this play? Now, if I ask you, just come back. We'll come back to the side. Finish reading the sentence. Rather, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes for them wings. And then the next stage is the renewal of the world. That Hashem renews the world completely. Okay.
So the seventh.
So again, according to him, the seventh millennium is the middle stage. Okay, then afterwards the renewal is the completely different reality, right? Meaning the seventh millennium is still part of this reality, seemingly, although it's not exactly, because if you remember again what he said about the right. So again, there are 5 stages. So the physical world, that's the 6,000th year. Then he said the 7th millennium would be parallel to the idea that the body is still dominant, but it's not in its place, right? So the way he sees it, since the Gemara says, where are the tzaddikim located at the time? So he says, Hashem makes for them wings, and they hover above the water, right? So seemingly, it's possible. Again, I'm not sure exactly. The way he, meaning I don't know how he understands the word that the world is destroyed. Does it mean literally destroyed? Or does he mean that the world is undergoing this transition period? Meaning, there's some water involved. I don't know what any of this means, right? This could be symbolic. We don't know anything. Maybe we're going to be on Mars and in a Tesla rocket. I'm not sure. Whatever the world will look like. But the point is that there is this idea that the tzaddikim are hovering. In other words, they're out above the physical reality, right? So in other words, they're still bodies, but their bodies slightly removed from the physical reality. So that's the beginning of that transition. The transition has begun, right? That's what he's focusing on. But again, what's confusing to me is that why does he assume that Tchias HaMeisim happens before that? I would have assumed that Tchias HaMeisim happens at the Chidush HaOlam, right? The whole idea of Chidush HaOlam is rebuilt it from new, especially that way he told us, right? That what happens by Tchias HaMeisim, he told us that the Neshama comes in and is in her full glory and is able to completely transform the body into this new reality, right? So it certainly would fit better if Tchias HaMeisim happens after the 7th millennium. No?
Like final judgment somehow involved.
Right, he's not talking about that final
Yeah, but
Let me just see 1 second for a second.
but before you destroy everything, service judgment first, and then you destroy everything.
Meaning the final judgment is
Should be before the total destruction.
but it's not. But again, maybe he's not really learning that it's his destruction. That it's just
whatever it is
of this transition. Yeah, but by him, if everything is a process, the final judgment may also not necessarily be this single moment experience.
I'm saying that it makes sense to have it before the final, before the destruction, whatever it is.
No, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that's what it would make, and Tchias HaMeisim is after the final judgment, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So since Tchias HaMeisim is after the final judgment, so therefore it would make sense before. I hear that. Where is this Rashi? Where is this Gemara? Hold on. Tzadik Beis. Amud Aleph. Tzadik Beis Amud Aleph. Right, so the Gemara just Ton Develiyohu. I think it's the Gemara. So this is the Gemara sounds. Tona Develiyohu. Tzadikim she'osid HaKadosh Baruch Hu lehachayoson. Tzadikim that Hashem will revive in the future. Einen choizrin le'ofren. They do not. No, they will no longer return to the offer, to the earth. Right? Once they're, Tchias Mesim is forever. Shenemar v'hoyo hanishar b'tzion v'anoiser b'Yerushalayim kodosh. Yom Merloi. Yom Merloi. Yom Merloi kol hakosav l'chaim b'Yerushalayim. I'm sorry. So he will be living in Yerushalayim. So he says, "Ma kodesh la'olam," just like holiness is forever, kayim is forever, remains forever. Avheim la'olam kayom. So the pasuk, however they learn from this l'chaim b'Yerushalayim, is forever. Okay. B'im toimer. Then the Gemara asks, and if you ask, oisan shonim, those years she'osid HaKadosh Baruch Hu lechadesh b'henes ha'olam. Which HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be renewing the world. Shenemar v'nizgav Hashem levada b'yom hahu, that Hashem is going to be alone on that day. Tzadikim mahein oisin. What are the tzadikim doing during that time? Right? What are the tzadikim doing during that time? And Rashi over here explains, right? V'yiha ulam hazeh chorav elef shanim, that the world will be destroyed for 1,000 years. Oisin tzadikim heichon heim. Where are those tzadikim? Ve'ein nikborin ba'oretz, since they're not being buried in the ground. So the Gemara answers, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ois lehem klafayim k'neshorim. Hashem will make for them wings like eagles. V'shotin al pnei hamayim, and they will hover above the water. Shenemar al kain lo nirim, etc., etc. So it's a different pasuk than he brings over here, but then the Gemara says, "V'shema toimer yesh lehem tsar," but they're going to have tsar. Tsar from what? Meaning not so tsar, meaning that they're going to be suffering during this time of constant hovering for 1,000 years, right? So the Gemara says, "Tamad lo v'kovesh Hashem yachlifu koyach." So that's where the strength. They're going to have all the strength that they will have no problems hovering for 1,000 years. Okay. Okay, so over here, I mean, it's pretty much straight out, mashma, that Tchias HaMeisim is before the 1,000 years.
Right.
That's the whole point of what the Gemara is saying. Okay, but I still don't fully understand. But okay. So then I still don't fully understand. What do I understand? The neshama is coming back into the body. Why isn't it?
But the notion of physical still exists because this world is still, it's the same old world.
Right, so when the world is renewed, so what happens to the...
Then I guess the physical is no longer physical.
But the bodies are still bodies.
At the end of 7 or at the end of
whatever. I mean, what's changing the bodies? What's making that transition?
Well, body not be body.
I mean, it could be that's
everybody's gone. Everybody's composed. Everybody's gone. So the one body.
Why is it gone?
Composed.
I mean, I guess that's the part. Maybe that's the idea of the wings. Also, maybe that's part of the transition is already happening. The fact that they're floating is that the transition. Meaning while the world is experiencing the transition, quote unquote, below, they're
Right. Here, in the commentary, they're comparing the water to the physical
I
needs.
mean, again,
and,
maybe I don't know. Global warming, the world gets flooded. We build rocket ships and we float
No flood.
above ground, and over this time, our bodies begin to evolve into something different because there's no gravity, and we change into some sort of different kinds of beings without, I don't know, calcium and I don't know. And change reality of, and then the world goes through an ice age, and 1,000 years later we come back down, but it's already now a different reality. I have no idea. Okay, it's just sci-fi version of events. Okay. All right. Okay. So, I mean, it could be before we go up into space. Knowing that the world is going to be flooded, we collect all the DNA, obviously, from everybody that was dead, so that we could be Mechai Mesim through Tavot.
we come back and recreate nothing.
All right. Anyways, okay, so fine. So that's okay. So fine. So it seems that Chias Mesim happens at this right before the 7,000th year. That's right, seventh millennium. I keep saying 7,000 years. Seventh millennium. Okay, so let's move on. However, the world, the way it is now, we see that the body has total control. Like a man who like a man who rules his house. This is the place for the body, and there's no better place for it. But however, in the 7,000th year, and so I mentioned this before, that the tzaddikim are rising above the ground. And so the body now will be will remain outside of its residence. Rather like an exiled man, and like a guest that stopped over at a hotel. So therefore, it has no complete control, but rather he is like Moshe Rabbeinu when he went up to the mountain, right? So he's kind of an earthling in a heavenly abode, an earthling in a heavenly abode. Since he is rose above the earth, he doesn't have to follow the ways of the earth. Therefore, to the 7th millennium, Karu Chazal, our sages call Yom Shekuloi Shabbos, a day that's totally Shabbos, Menucha L'chaye Olamim. It's an eternal rest, right? So again, Shari, the 7th millennium is parallel to the Yom HaShabbos, to the 7th day, right? So the 7th millennium is where, also like the Shemitah year, right? The earth rests, so to speak, right? And we, so again, I'm not sure really that the world has to be Chorov, practically, according to the Ramchal. Maybe it's just symbolic of some sort of a Shabbos, right? So, Kishoivsim boy mikol malachos agufnius shehem hachoil. Because at that point we rest from all types of physical labor, which is mundane, right? So maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not even destroyed. Maybe we're just not actively involved anymore. I don't know. We built AI and robots, and we're just, it's 1,000 year of Shabbos, and the wings are just what?
Yom Kippur also Shabbos.
Right, maybe we don't have to eat anymore as much. I don't know. However that transition takes place, I don't know. However, the body has not yet been removed from its existence. Because there's no yet renewal, not renewal, but there's no chidush, there's no newness to the bria, to the creation. However, once the world is renewed, which is the stage of tomorrow, which is time to receive the reward, right? So then we no longer need the body to have control, because the only need for the body to have control is during the time of the avodah, which is the 6,000 years. Well, is it? I'm saying, is it? Let's come back for a second. When is the Zman HaAvodah? Right? If we created this Zman HaAvodah, is the Zman HaAvodah 6,000 years or is Zman HaAvodah 7,000 years? Right? On one hand, it sounds like whenever there is a body, it's Zman HaAvodah, because that's what the body is for. But if it's 7,000th years after Tchias HaMeisim, and the neshama is fully returned, so then what's the avodah? I mean, the avodah of resting, is that like the avodah of
It
not
still
doing
sounds
the
like
avodah?
that since there's gonna be the next stage, there's got to be something.
I mean, right, it's not just 1,000th year of like hovering, is literally the Gemara says. Like there's some sort of avodah still taking place. But what's the avodah? There's no bechira. We even say by Mashiach there's no bechira, because like we see everything, Hashem's presence is fully revealed, and yet maybe it's still considered avodah. I don't know. It's not avodah because you're not doing it. It's not, without bechira, there's no avodah, seemingly. What's the avodah without bechira? Right? Because he says, right? I mean, he says, right? He only says the idea that there is no longer necessity for the dominion of the body after the renewal stage, after the onset of the renewal stage. So because you only need it for avodah.
But it will still be there.
What?
Right?
The body
still exists.
Right.
It just says the Bechira.
Right. Maybe the avodah is transition. Maybe transition is the avodah. I don't know. I'm not sure. But at that point, the metzius of the body is tofel to the neshama. Meaning the eighth millennium. To bask in the goodness, in the lofty goodness forever and ever.
That's during the seventh.
No, that's already eighth. He's talking about the eighth. The eighth, meaning once the body becomes right. There is dominion of the body, right, and then there is no dominion of the body. So the dominion of the body, in other words, when the body has, what does dominion mean? Meaning the body has a say. Has a say. The body only has a say during the time of avodah. That seems to include the 7,000th year, the seventh millennium, seventh millennium. So in the seventh millennium, the body still has a say, but its say is like, not so strong and significant like it is during the sixth millennium.
Sure, we didn't get to the eighth yet. We're still in the seventh.
But then he says over here, he says, good. Aval mechidush ha'olam v'hola, right, from that line, but from the renewal of the word and onwards, shuhu l'machar l'kabel scharim, which is the stage of tomorrow to receive reward. Hine ein tzorich oid l'shlitus haguf klal, because there is no longer a need for the dominion, for the control of the body. Meaning the body then has no say. It exists, but it has no say. Ki ein tzorich avoda bizmana, because the body's say is only necessary during the time of avoda in its time. Aval iyam mitziyusay tofel neshama. Then it exists only as tofel, as something secondary to the neshama. Only to receive its reward forever and ever.
So in the 8th, the body is still existent, but it's completely It's completely
right. And even though he's told us before that 8th is still not it's completely right. 8th, 9th, and 10th is still another whole process of where the body loses its total, loses its total dominion whatsoever. But at the end of the day, 8th, 9th, and 10th is still within the realm of chidush ha'olam. It's a new reality. Okay, so what else I just want to point out is that he did not really differentiate between Moshe Rabbeinu and the regular people, but he did not differentiate between Adam Harishon and regular people.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought this idea before, obviously, but when Adam Harishon was created, what stage is he created in? Is it a separate stage? I mean, seemingly it's not a separate stage, right? It's got to be part of this world. He's part of the 6,000 years, and he's a body. Even though we say that Adam Harishon's body was very different, right?
Was it really part of 6,000 years? I mean,
I would say yes. We say Rosh Hashanah. We say Hayom Haras Hayom. This is the start of the world and it's the beginning of mankind.
When do you begin counting the 6,000?
After the sin or before the sin?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't know. I would have said
because if it wasn't for the head, maybe it would have been, at the very end of the 10th, not at the beginning of the 1st, right?
No, I don't think so. That's the thing. I don't think so.
Right.
At the end of the day, he had to have some sort of a bechira, which means the body had to have control. The body has control, so the body has reality. But yet we still say that the body of Adam Rishon was different than our body.
So that it can be one of the first 6. Maybe 7.
No,
8.
no, it isn't. Somehow it still has to be some kind of a
Maybe.
6A and 6B or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. Okay, fine. Moving on. Tzadik Gimel. So Amar Neshama V'Leila V'Shli V'Chidush Olam. But the seventh millennium and the renewal of the world, these are things that are removed from our knowledge, concealed from our knowledge. How could we speak about them? So Amar Seichel responds, on the contrary, we will not speak about them. However, the reality of those times, in their general kind of, in their speaking generally, we understand them. And that's what we are saying from the concept of guf and neshama. Meaning we don't know anything about the 7th millennium or the 8th millennium. But we just know that since there is a concept of guf and neshama, and since we know that they both have to exist and they both have to receive reward and they both understand there is a time for avoid and a time for schar, so from that itself we know that there is a concept of total neshama, total guf, which we understand now, and there's some transition period. That's what we understand. That's what he's saying. He's saying we don't have no idea what really the 7th millennium is going to be. We have no idea what the 8th millennium is going to be. All we know is there is a guf and then the neshama, and they both have a mission, and they both will get reward. So therefore, it makes sense that there's going to be this period, the transition period, and then the reward period. Ach prote azmanim ha'ela, the details of these times, v'adai efshar lanu lasigam l'dasei som klal. We have no way to grasp them, to really know them at all. Rak hazman shel shisa alfei shana ela. The only thing we truly know is this time of the 6th millennium. Hu hanoide lonu umusig protov. That's the thing that we know and we can grasp in detail. Val ze yisov in now that we will now conduct our investigation on that topic with Reinu b'derech prati, and that we'll discuss in detail. V'shtei azmanim ha'acherim, and the other two eras, neido aim rak b'chlal. We will know them only in general. Shehem azmanim shaguf oivich litosu. We know them only as much as the body loses its dominion during those times. V'haneshama misalu lisona harishon, and the neshama returns to her former glory. Amra neshama, so neshama says, okay, so let's discuss what we that we are allowed and are able to grasp. Okay, so tzadik vov. So Amar Seichel, yeah. Continuing. So Amar Seichel, Atom Yesh Lonu Lahavin. Now that we understand the general, what's the word? Bird's eye view of history, right? Past, present, and future. Now that we understand that, so he says, okay, now we can go back and drill down into the present, right? In other words, even though in the overview of the timeline, he discussed the last stage first and the present stage last, but now he says we're going to discuss the present stage because that's the one we can understand. Now we have to understand the first state which a person has, which is when he is in this world. That is the time of his avodah, of his service. Now, the concept of avodah, we already explained. Okay, now before we read any further, if I ask you again in one sentence, what is the concept of avodah according to Ramchal? Yeah, anybody? What's the concept of avodah according to Ramchal? Give me one word. One sentence, not one word. One sentence, one idea.
Transformation.
What?
Transformation.
Transformation. Okay, give me a little more transformation. What transformation?
Physical to spiritual.
Okay. I hear that. It sounds great, but then technically, I would have said that. I would have said back from our Mesilas Yesharim days, right? That's what I said from our Mesilas Yesharim days. But the problem is, he never told us about any kind of transformation whatsoever that happens here. The only transformation that happens, in the Chidush Olam, as far as we know. So transformation, I'm not buying the transformation yet. I mean, I hear it. I hear from Mesilas Yesharim story.
But how I get transformation to receive reward, so it's...
Yeah, so what would you say? Give me something else. So if you would have asked me, I would have said, and you could say it in multiple ways. You could say to become perfect, to achieve perfection. That's what I would have said. Okay? That's what I would have said, to achieve perfection. And perfection doesn't mean real perfection, but perfection in as much as you can. Okay? Perfection in as much as you can, because you can only connect. So another way of saying it, another way of saying would be to become God-like as much as you can. Right? Which is same thing, just using different words, because God is perfection. So either become God-like or to achieve perfection. That's what I would have said. Either one of those two things, because because he said that Hashem created elements of perfection and elements of imperfection, and gave us the choice to take one, to choose one or the other. Correct?
Yeah, but it was a long time ago.
Right. Yeah, I understand. So that's what I would have said. Let's see what he says. So ve'amna maha avodah b'chlal. What is the idea of the avodah in general? We already explained it. Shehi, that is lehavir kol hachisaron shenimtza b'bri'osoi, to remove all lacking that is found in Hashem's creation.
Okay.
Okay. So now, again, what is he saying now? What's the avodah? The avodah is you are a janitor. Okay, let's put it this way. Your job is clean up the mess. All right. Clean up the mess. Or if you want to say differently, you are a mechanic. Your job is to fix everything that's broken. However you want to say it. A janitor and a mechanic. Clean up the mess and fix what's broken. Okay? Which is again, it's really saying the same thing, what I said before. If it's to achieve perfection, well, the way you achieve perfection is by removing imperfection, which is, just two sides of the same coin. But you could say it in it's a half full, half empty type of a thing, right? You can describe the avodah as achieving perfection, or you can describe the avodah as the removal of imperfection. So we'll have to see why he focuses. Let's see what he says. So if here he focuses on the negative, right? On the negative, right? This sur, like we said before, the sur me'ra v'asei tov, right? Go away from evil and do good, right? I mean, what's good, what's evil? Whatever is good is not evil. Whatever is not evil is good. But it's two sides of the same coin. So we have to remove all the chisaron. Hu hara hazeh. So what is the chisaron? It's all the evil. Asher motzoi hu ata, which is found at the present. Ve'oimed li'izbatel, but it's oimed li'izbatel. The evil is part of the trick is that the evil is made with a self-destruct mechanism, and your removal is really accomplishing what would have happened without your participation. But Hakadosh Baruch Hu is giving you schar as if you removed it. However, it's upon a person this masa, this burden, lehishtadel, again, to make an effort, al bituloi mimeno berishoina, to nullify. It doesn't say remove, to nullify from him first, meaning to nullify the evil from him first, meaning even though the mission is to remove evil from the creation, but where do you start? First, you clean up your own backyard, and you fix yourself first. You betula, you mevatel it, you nullify it, right? Like chometz, right? You mevatel the Yetzer Hara, so to speak, in you. But then afterwards, mikol habriya kulo, from the entire creation, lefi mashenai geyaloi, whatever is applicable to him, right? So it's very interesting, meaning, meaning there's a part of the universe that's yours, so to speak, right? That you have the ability to influence, right? Your circle of influence, your circle, right? So you're responsible. Again, that's also your backyard. So even though it's clean up your backyard, well, every aspect of the world that you can influence is part of your backyard. Just there is your, let's say not backyard, there's your house, that's your body, and then there's your backyard, that's the rest of the world that you can control. Okay? You can't control right now what's going on in Lebanon and Hezbollah. That is not part of your backyard, and you have Hashem is not going to come and say, why, look what happened, it's your fault. Again, maybe if you're going to Lador, maybe what's going on in Lebanon is also part of your backyard. And maybe even, tsunami in Indonesia is also part of your backyard if you're the God Lador. But everybody has their own part of the world that they're responsible for. Right, so obviously your house is your backyard, right? It's whatever, your place of work is your backyard. Wherever you go, wherever you are, that's your backyard. Fine. So so your job is to remove the evil from first from you, then from your big cat. And I'm not sure if I get it. On one hand, I also just point out that I appreciate the difference that you got to start with yourself first, right? The famous Rabbi Yisroel Feldstein, right? I wanted to change the world, but I first decided, let me change first my city. Then I can change my city. Let me change my neighbor, my house. Whatever. And then decided possibly I can change myself, right? So I appreciate that. On the other hand, at which point does a person say, "Oh, okay, I fixed myself"?
Let's
I
move
mean,
on to the city.
technically, right? It's perfection. If we're talking about removal of imperfections, only God is truly perfect. That means at any point in time there will be imperfections that could be removed. The higher you grow, the more imperfections you're able to remove. So there's no point at which you're going to say, "Oh, okay, I finished myself. Now let me move on to the rest of the universe," right? Obviously, I don't know, obviously, but it logically would be saying that really me and my world are one thing, and me perfecting myself and me perfecting the world is part of the same process. They go together. I don't know if it's necessarily first I change myself, then I change the world. Something doesn't jive. Again, unless you say that, no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'm just thinking out loud now, so, but what you're saying is that Hashem created a person in different stages of his life, and maybe in younger years, the focus is more on your world, and then in older years, maybe that's part of this, Ben Chamesh, whatever, all of these stages. I don't know. I'm just this. Again, on one hand, I appreciate the difference of first you then the rest, but then practically speaking, I don't know how it breaks down. Okay, fine, moving on. Good. So over here on the bottom, he also points out that, right, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that Chayev Odom Lomer B'Shvili Nivra Olam, that a person is obligated to say that for my sake the world is created. So he says that is, in other words, the world was within your universe that you have influence on. That is your universe, and for that universe was created only for you. And that's what the Gemara is saying. That B'Shvili Nivra Olam, that's your universe. You're responsible for that part, meaning his, Chaim's part is his universe, and my part is my universe. Okay, fine. That's what he's saying here. That's what he means. Okay. And also, right. So, and obviously, this would go doors. As person grows, possibly more and more of his universe, more of the universe becomes his. Or maybe that's our answer.
Yeah.
That's our answer, and that's our answer, right? In other words,
They got all down in tsunami.
Right. That when a little baby is born, the only universe that he is responsible for is his body. That's the only universe that he's responsible for. As he grows, so more and more of his Daladam, more of the world enter his Daladams. And that's what we say, is cotton godel here, right? This cotton should be a godel, right? In other words, as he becomes godel, the more and more of the universe becomes his. Okay, fine. Let's keep going. Ve'inyan ze biruhu zal b'medrash. So this was explained in the Medrash. Al posuk koshalta be'avaynecha. Right, the pasuk says that Klal Yisrael, you stumbled in your sins. Right, in other words, it was avoin is a type of a sin that seems to be b'mezid, like a rebellion, and yet it says koshalta, you stumbled, you made a mistake. Zel l'shoyin umra b'simai moshol l'tzur gavoya is an example for a big rock, a tall rock, shehoya oimed al parshas drachim, that was standing on the fork in the road. And people keep stumbling on it. Omar HaMelech, so the king says, Situtuhu kimo kimo, cut it down little by little until the time is right, until the time arrives, and I will remove it from the world. Right? So what's he saying? What's he bringing in this medrash? What aspect is he talking about this medrash? The inyan zeh.
Self-perfection.
That you see. So in the bottom he says that you see that the stumbling block, which is the evil, is not removed in one shot, but it's rather removed little by little.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a process. Okay. So omnam mashatzorich levayer ata. What we need to explain now, who prote ha'avodah hazos, is actually the details, the particulars of this avodah, right? Ve'ube'eze derech nasa tikun hazel le'olam le'odam u'le'olam, and in what way this tikkun happens to the person and to the world. Right, so now he's going to drill down into the avoid of removing and what he calls now removal of the chiton. Okay, so let's keep going. The ulam, however, however, before we understand really what the nature of the avoida is, right, we have to understand the nature of evil. Because the evil is the thing that is the cause for this burden of avoida, for this, not burden, I would say responsibility of the avoida, right? Uledas kol gvuloisav. So therefore, we also need to know the boundaries of evil. Ma inyonoi, what is its nature? V'toldoisov, and its outcomes. B'meh koichoy hagodol, what is great strength? In what aspect does it have a great strength? And in with what you can cut it down. In Colossian Mamorim, as we said in this medrash. And with what it could be completely removed from the world. So again, let's just recap what he said. What are we looking for in our understanding of nature of evil? We need to know the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the first thing. I don't know why he mentioned the boundaries first. Ma inyonoi means its concept. Mm-hmm. So I would have said, right, usually we say inyonoi first, the concept. First you understand the concept, then you understand the boundaries of the concept. He seemed to be unusual for himself. He first tells us about the boundaries of evil, then the concept, the teldoisov and consequences. And then what is its superpower and what is its weakness, right? That could be able to cut it down, and what is its, how is it completely removed from the world? Okay, right. Now, some of this we covered really in Derech Hashem, but this was also like a really long time ago, but he talked about the nature of evil in Derech Hashem. So let's see. This, I guess, the existence of evil is a metzius, is an existence that it's totally mechudash, totally new, totally novel. Shirotza, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted b'chidesh oisoi ha'odom baruch hu l'naseis bo ibnei odom. Hashem desired, and He was mechadesh. He created from scratch to test with it people. Lo seis lehem mokem la'avodah, in order to give them a place, an opportunity for service. There was no hint for this type of existence. Nothing even close to it. Until HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought its existence from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay, again, it keeps what's the word? Yeah. Rehashing this idea that Ra is a totally novel. Novel. I mean, all of the world is novel, right? Technically, but he's saying there's some kind of an additional novelty. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate good and perfection, right? we assume, Toiv and Shleimus are on the same side of the spectrum, and evil is neither Shleimus nor Toiv. V'hinei kol mashu Toiv, anything that is good, afal pishu mechudosh, even though it's something completely new, like we said right just now, Hashem created everything new, but still, if it's good, nikra shemisyaches elovis baruch, we still refer to it that it has some relation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, its novelty is not so novel because it's not against the grain of nature, what perfection is, right? Okay. So therefore, it still has a connection. So it's therefore closer to the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However, this evil, adrab, on the contrary, hinehu dover hahofchi loy is barach mamash. It is something that's totally opposite to Hashem. Asher lo hoya le'inyan zeh v'loy korav loy shem v'zecher klal koydem shechitcha baruch hu. So therefore, there was nothing to the concept of evil that was even possible to exist before it was brought into existence. Aval mikoyach yichol toy. But rather from Hashem's infinite ability, habilti bailas tachlis, which has no limit, hu zeh, sheyachol lehamtzi, that he is able to bring into existence af mashu hafech loy mamash, even something that is totally opposite from him, right? Again, we mentioned this probably before, but if the question is, how should I say, can Hashem commit suicide, so to speak? Right, so we assume no, probably, but the creation of evil is something as close as possible to that, because he's creating something that basically is going against him, right? He's creating something that he has no control over. He's creating something that is right. So it's completely different from him, right?
We can't say Hashem cannot commit suicide. He can do anything he wants.
I don't think so.
But
I'm thinking about it. I don't want to get involved in that philosophical debate. Okay. But let's say for simplicity's sake, let's say not.
Okay.
But this is kind of within that framework. That's what I'm saying. Okay. And this is what I'm sorry, I skipped the line. She can create something that's completely opposite from him. It's not even within the nature of Hashem, so to speak. The idea to let it be known. I'm not sure what the difference is, and to make it known. That to his ability there is no boundary whatsoever. HaKosov, and this is what the pasuk says, Yoitzer Or, right, etc., that we say in davening, and it concludes, Uvore Ra, and I create evil, Ani Hashem, Oisa Kol Elayim, Hashem, who made all of these. All right, that's the pasuk that we say in the morning davening. V'amnam, who is Baruch Shim Tziyoy, Loihim Tziyoy battle. He did create this evil that is opposite of him, but he only created it with a self-destruction. And like the statement of Chazal that I brought above, meaning that's the Melech, I guess, that he's going to remove the rock. But he only brought it into existence within a certain boundary, within a certain nature, so that he desired. Because at the end of the day, the only kavana here is to gather from this evil itself a good fruit for the tzaddikim, right? In other words, the creation of this evil is still for the sake of good, right? Lo seis lehem schar tov ba'olam, to give them schar tov by overcoming this evil. Okay, Omra Neshama. The Neshama says, so this idea we have to understand it fully. Because I can see now that this concept that he outlined here includes in itself many important other ideas. Okay. Just 1 second. So I'm not sure. I'm just trying to think. What meaning? Did he tell us anything about the nature of evil? No. Did he tell us anything about the boundary of evil?
Yeah.
Did he?
Well, it's going to be destroyed eventually.
Destroyed. That's the boundary, that it's in the self-destruct
No,
mechanism.
at least.
Nothing more.
Okay. So I'm saying, where did he? Right. So the only thing he told us that evil is the opposite of Hashem, and in its chilul Hashem lies a kiddush Hashem. Right. Like we say also, like the Chazal say, by the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, that they wanted to remove from Shemon Esrei, they wanted to remove the words "Atah Gibar," that you are strong. Because how are you strong? And you're letting your house be destroyed. And then they said, no, let's keep it because hein gvuroisov. That's the strength. Meaning even within the destructions, you see HaKadosh Baruch Hu's power. The power of not, of tolerating it, of letting it happen, that's also a strength. Right? So that idea, right, is also really about the whole existence of evil in the first place. That it's on one hand, it's a chil Hashem, it's creating something that goes against you, right? And yet, that's the strength. It shows that your strength doesn't have any limitation. So, okay, fine. Okay, so I guess we'll have to stop here because it's just getting late. And yeah, okay, let's pause.